Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one person that just absolutely exemplifies everything that God and Gigs is about, it's my guest today. Now, I'm actually getting to meet him and talk to him after talking to his better half. But I'm going to get the other side of the story today. Sam Warshaw, welcome to the God and Gigs show. How are you?
Good. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm
Yeah,
good.
as I mentioned, it's not often I get to hear, two sides of a power couple, the wife and the husband. But your wife has already been on the show, so she's kind of us to your world. But we get to hear it from you. You have an incredible story of your own, and then when you combine your two stories, it really is something that I can't wait to tell my audience here, that everybody's listening all about it from your side of the story. But
Hmm.
I always do the 30-second elevator pitch just for, convention's sake. So you can just tell them who you are in like a nutshell, some of the reasons why they would like to, something that you'd like them to know about you right off the top.
My name is Sam Warshaw. My wife and I own an entertainment agency called Warshaw Entertainment. And we provide entertainment primarily to the cruise ship entertainment industry. Excuse me. And we've been in the cruise industry about 17 years. We performed on board as headliners for about 14 years, full time, touring 35 weeks a year, give or take. And so yeah, that's the main thing we've done over the years. I was also a musical director at a church in South Florida called Church by the Glades for about a decade. Recently, we relocated to Nashville. My wife is now a Ramsey personality, and how that ended up happening is a whole nother story.
I'm telling you, that is the part that, like, I don't know how we could even get started without just starting from the end and working our way back to the beginning. Maybe that's the best way to do it, because sometimes we start from the beginning and we try to say, okay, well, how in the world did you all get to the point that you are? But let's just start with like the fact that you just said you are moved to Nashville now. You guys are relocating. So just tell me a little bit about how life is happening right now. Like, what's surprising you right now, that if I go back to the beginning, yeah, what's surprising you? Like,
All of
what
it
is it
is
like?
a surprise. I mean, all of it's a surprise. Um, for those people who don't know, Ramsey Solutions is a place. Dave Ramsey owns it, and basically Dave has created a system of baby steps in order to get you financially free and uh, ultimately build wealth. And man, I feel like we got to start at the beginning to end up where we are. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
It
Like,
doesn't make sense. Yeah. I just love it though, because I like looking at what people say, I had no idea I was going to end up here, right? And that's kind of like why I mentioned that, like the surprise and seeing that transition to the point where you are right now, because some people will look at the beginning and they will never realize that you could make it to where you are now and still be surprised. Not saying that you've made it, but saying that this is a continuous journey. So that's why I mentioned that, hey, even where you're at now, it's like it's starting all over again. It's a whole new chapter of your life.
it is. I mean, long story short, when Jade and I graduated college, we looked up, we had just gotten married, and we realized, one day I was checking my credit report, and I realized we had $460,000 of debt. So suspiciously close to half a million. Most of that was student loans, my stupidity. I went to Berkeley. I did what everybody told me to do. I got caught up and wanting to be a certain kind of musician and have a certain kind of, school name next to me. And it was a big price tag. And when we looked up and realized that we had that debt, I mean, it was overwhelming, and it was crushing, to be honest. And from that point, we were 23 at the time when we realized what we had ahead of us. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know what we were going to do. We knew we were going to be musicians, but there's a lot that goes into that, right? Of like, most people like, how are you even going to make a living? And my thought was, how are we going to pay off $500,000 and live? And basically that's a big part of our journey of why we have this business, why we've performed the way we have, the relationships we built. A lot of it was digging out of this hole. And now, and back in 2017, We went on the Ramsey Show and we did what they call a debt-free scream. It took us 7 years, but we paid off every cent of that debt using Dave's principles. Paid off $460,000, and all with music.
Okay, that's the part. That's why I was like, okay, because you almost have to like look at the entire, like you said, start from the beginning, but just look at the entire thing. Now they can go back to episode 169 if they want to hear Jade tell you some of the story, because she mentions about starting in college, how she was actually in sports, I believe, but
Yes,
also
yes.
was then moving into music, and you starting in music. So you just hit the nail on the head. Music being the thing that you guys decided to build on, and already knowing, like, here's the part I would have said, okay, we've got a $500,000 in debt. The music's going to have to wait. We're going to have to go get real jobs on top of that. So tell me why it was that you were able to tell yourself, we're going to stick with our plan to be musicians and use that to take on this massive amount of debt.
Well, I mean, there's a couple short answers to it. One, I spent my whole life studying music. It was the thing I loved. It was the thing I dreamt of. It was who I wanted to be. I wanted to be, I studied in college to be a bass player. And, you know, a lot of people tell you when you're going to be a musician, oh, well, got to have a backup plan.
Yep, plan B.
Plan B. And in my mind, a backup plan is a plan to fail. You're either going all in or you're not doing it. And I also realize that being a successful musician doesn't mean that you are Prince or Michael Jackson or, you're a megastar. You can make a really good living. And you don't even have to play with that person to make a really good living. I just realized that was possible. And another thing why I stuck to music, and Jade and I stuck to music, is, for me personally, I realized at a very young age, I could not work for somebody else. Like, I couldn't go get a job and make $50,000 a year. I would be so miserable. And so, we just bet on ourselves. And in my mind, there was no other choice. I took out these student loans to be a musician. I better freaking use my skill set to pay this off.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that when as soon as you said the no plan B, I thought back to, I think I saw on your Instagram where you posted Kobe saying something like that about going all in and not going back. Now, musicians, we have, again, like you said, this passion to create. We all love it. You are a phenomenal musician in your own right, and you just said it, that you don't necessarily have to play with Prince. You did though rub shoulders and get to be in some circles with some of these great musicians. So tell me, what are some of the lessons you learned as you became a professional, as you started to build on the thing where you said you don't want to work for anybody else? So correct me if I'm wrong. You've always been an independent musician. You've always built your own businesses. You've never had to like get a label or anything like that. It's always been building your own business.
Well, yes. Well, first of all, when it comes to the music industry, me personally, I want selling records. I want nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It's a thing of the past. I feel like if you get 1 million people to look at anything you do, you should at least make $1 million. And when a million streams is equivalent to about $2,500, I want nothing to do with that. Now, as far as being an independent musician or whatever, and a business owner, like I said, my wife and I, we started in the cruise industry. We came out of college. I had been doing a lot of studio work for bigger artists, and I was making good money. And this is around 2008. 2008 comes, a lot of studios closed, and, we were looking for our next step, and I knew we wanted to work together. And so we both auditioned for Royal Caribbean. We got jobs with Royal Caribbean, and it was a great experience. I was in the orchestra, which is like a show band. And the main thing about that gig is sight reading. So you're sight reading a different show every night. Your reading chops have to be like top notch. And I'm a big believer in maximizing the opportunity that you have in front of you, being a good steward of whatever that is. And so we saw there's another opportunity within the cruise ship industry that we wanted to do, and that was called headlining. That's where you have your own show and you perform it in the ship's theater. That could be 1,500 seats to 2,500 seat theater. These people don't necessarily know who you are, but the point is you're doing your own show, you're making good money, and you're only performing one night during the cruise, you know? And so this sounded like really like, okay, this is the next thing we need to do.
Yeah.
This is where betting on yourself, um, being resourceful, that's a big thing I value, is being resourceful. That's where this comes into play, because in order to have your own show, you have to have charts for a 9-piece band. You have to have tracks. You got to have click. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, but I said, I'm going to figure it out. And so I started figuring out how to make charts, you know, and then I started getting into tracking, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Jade had to become who she had to become in order to engage an audience, you know, as a solo person on a stage with a band behind her, this well-crafted show. And so we both had to dig in, learn whole new skill sets. And we did. And there was a big learning curve. But we finally got to a point where we had a show. We ended up doing a Whitney Houston tribute show, and we got that show to a point where it was performing. We were performing it, you know, like I said, 35, 40 weeks a year. And we were going that hard again because we were trying to pay off this debt. You know, we loved what we did, but you know, if you do that math, I mean, we were gone all the time, and that it's amazing, but it's a grind too. All that travel, you know, we would fly all around the globe. We've performed in 92 countries, and that's a blessing, but that's a lot of time on an airplane, you know? So we just got to a point where we were like, okay, this is too much. Like, there's got to be a better way to earn a living than just performing, because as a performer, you're only as good as your last show. As a vocalist, I've learned, being married to one, you know, the air conditioning is too cold, too warm, too whatever, the voice is gone, right? And it was like, that's really high pressure to live like that your whole life. And so through church and other places, we've learned about leadership. And one of the things about leadership is duplicating yourself. And we just thought, okay, again, back to maximizing the opportunity in front of you. We thought, okay, we're here. We've kind of reached the peak or the ceiling of what you can do performance-wise within the cruise ship industry, which is headlining. What else can we do around here? And so I started looking around. I realized I didn't like the caliber of musician I had consistently. You know, I'd go ship to ship, cruise line to cruise line, and I thought this could be better. And so we had a dinner one night. We said, Jade said to me, well, why don't we create an agency and start hiring musicians? You know, easy idea to execute.
Yeah, easy to say, but
I got a whole nother thing, you know, and that started a journey of probably 3 or 4 years of trying to create an agency out of nothing, which we then did. And now we've been active as an agency for 8 years. I've got about 125 musicians working. And, you know, I don't hardly perform at all anymore. You know, I play at church because I want to. But taking that pressure off, you know, of like, yeah, if you get sick, no money that night, you know, like that's
trading time for money. You know, like you said, it's the grind. I was just thinking, you answered my question before I had a chance to ask it, which is, how do you build the mentality and the drive, not just to be a performer and to raise your level in terms of performance and musicianship, like you said, grinding, figuring out how to be a band leader, how to be the MD, how Jade had to be the feature artist, but then to become the manager and to become the business type. And what I think a lot of us, our musician friends, are listening, what they don't realize is the same, well, and tell me if I'm wrong, the same discipline you had to apply to become an MD is the same discipline you had to apply to become a management or an agency owner, a business owner. So and then you mentioned church. So that's the other question I asked. So tell me, what did you learn from your experiences at church and your faith that helped you level up?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. Well, let me go back to the first part.
Okay.
As a musician, I think there's this like fairy tale thing in people's minds of like, oh, I'm gonna be a vocalist, or I'm gonna be a piano player, and I'm just gonna work, you know. And the thing people don't realize is you're a musician, but really you're an entrepreneur. Okay. Self-employed. I mean, it is what it is. And the thing you're selling is you all the time, right? people don't realize that. And so if you want to get hired, you got to sell yourself. And that also means like doing the bare minimum aside from playing, showing up, being prepared, all
Professional. Yep.
that. You want to own a business, it's the same mentality, it's the same mindset, except you're not selling yourself at this point. You know, now I'm selling the dream of working full-time as a musician, and I'm trying to get musicians to buy into that. You know, sometimes they don't believe it, or you know, they don't think it's for them or whatever. But that's what I'm selling now is, hey, you say you want to be a musician, come on, let's go. You know, let's go live the dream, play music at night and be at the beach during the day. That sounds pretty good to me. I've been there, I've done that. It's great, you know. And then on the other side, you know, when I'm quote unquote selling to the cruise lines, it's just, hey, you know, we say what we're going to do. And I'm only going to give you what I believe in as far as talent goes and things like that. So yes, there's selling on that side. But at the end of the day, as a musician, you have to realize you're an entrepreneur, flat out. You know, you don't work for somebody, because even if you play for a big time artist, guess what? When that artist is done, you're done.
Yep.
So the cycle starts all over again. You got to figure it out, you know, and the ones who do well are the ones that are the people who do well are the ones that understand 80% of the gig is not about the playing. You know, it's about, can you have a conversation with someone and be cool, you know? Do you have a get it factor or a self-awareness about yourself? You know, don't be weird. I mean,
Isn't that? Oh gosh, that is the one statement that I wish we could say to all the musicians and artists and creatives, like all of us. Like we are creative, so we get it, right? Like we have. You just said it. It's like an it factor. There's a uniqueness that you got to have, but you also got to have interpersonal relationship skills along with your uniqueness. That doesn't make it impossible for you to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as a musician, artist, whatever, creative, you have to balance your creativity with a linear side of yourself. And if you're, you know, I feel like few people get to be just so creative and so in the clouds and, you know, do whatever they want because somehow they lucked out and they have this whole team around them that handle all the other stuff. But unless you're that person, you have to have a side of yourself that's like on planet Earth. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and,
grounded.
And that's grounded and that, you know, checks their bank and, you know, like does normal stuff. That's very important. You got to have a good balance of both. And I have found that the linear part of me has been more valuable than the creative part. The creative part of me, I almost feel like, you know, I've learned my role within music, and that is an artist, my wife, whoever says, hey, I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, I'll make it happen. You know, that's the linear part. That's like, okay, I know the steps that I need to do. I need to arrange this. I need to chart this, blah, 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 whatever that is. You just give me the creative idea. So I found that that's been my strength, you know, but creativity is a great thing too, but you have to keep it at a level that's out of the clouds so that you can explain what it is you want to do. You know what I mean? To people.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you're talking about the linear. I think about my wife. My wife is a very managerial type person, but she's also a singer. She wants nothing to do with the performance side though. But when we do work together, and this is one of the things I'd love to dig into, it's a whole other topic, but working with your wife in that creative managerial business, owning a business together, when my wife tells me, hey, I want to sing a song, I talk like you just talk. I go linear. I say, treat me like I'm just an accompanist. Don't treat me like I'm because one of us has to be the one to actually play these chords and figure this out. You can have all these great ideas, but I need to treat you just like I would treat any other singer and say, what do you want? How fast? How slow? What key? And just make it very simple so I can give you what you ask for. As an artist, I need the step by step. Like you said, if we're both heading the clouds and being, oh, we're going to make this beautiful song, one of us has to actually execute it. And that's why I would love to touch on it just a little bit. Because, yeah, I mean, marriage is just a whole nother topic, right? But how has that worked with you and Jade just being co-owners, being co-owners, co-entrepreneurs, and then also, of course, keeping your marriage intact?
Well, Well, there's a couple. We always worked together until 6 months ago, so we worked together for 15, 16 years in everything we did, both at, Church by the Glades as headliners and as business owners. And each one of those areas was different. It took me a long time to wrestle the fact, both of our names were on the marquee for headlining, and I was in the photo with her, but people would not acknowledge me because they don't know what, the audience
Right.
know what I'm doing back
You're in the
there.
back. Yeah.
At that time, Jade asked me to play piano in our Whitney Houston show because I was a bass player, and no one definitely knows what I'm doing back there. And so she was like, "You'll be more out front. It'll be a feature part of the show. David Foster did so much of that Whitney Houston music, blah, blah, blah." So I learned how to play piano for that show. And even after that, that to get back to your question, learning your role is and understanding your role within whatever you're doing is really important. Like I said, it took me a long time to not be, oh, I get so frustrated and the bitterness would come up because it's like, dude, you see what I just did? Like audience, like I did all the crap. Okay. Can I get some love? But it's not, the show's not about me or the musicians. It's about the vocalist. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And you just have to realize that. And once I came to grips with that, Jade and I, our relationship within a show context got a lot better. Because I was content, with my role. It was fine. It was good. And with a business, that's a whole different thing, because you both have different strengths and weaknesses, and that's not performing. That's figuring out, relationships with other people and who does what better. So that's a lot of back and forth that we had to figure out. And it just turned out that I was more the lead in the business. And she deferred to me more in the business, as opposed to me deferring more to her with the show, because she was the face of the show. And then at Church by the Glades, we both worked there, but we had different areas. I ran the band and she ran the creative stuff. So I understood that she came up with the ideas, and part of what I did was execute that musically. So there wasn't much of a push and pull there. It was just like, okay, these are the roles, they're defined. Good, let's do it. So
That's powerful though, because you just talked about roles, and it does mirror musicianship. And it's amazing that I say we because I also have a wife who's in business with me. We get to figure out, okay, as an accompanist, like I just mentioned, and you as an accompanist on keys and bass and MD, your job is kind of like to float to the background, but then your job is essential. Without you, the whole thing falls apart, right? And in business and in life, and doing something amazing, doing something that levels you up, like we just talked about, you have to know your role. You have to stay in your lane, and you got to be secure in that. Just like as a musician, when you're the drummer, you have to realize that this is your role, and right. You may not get the accolades, and you may not get the solo, and you may not get to jam out. You need to play the song like the song is, stay in rhythm, but that gets you the check, that gets you the gig, that gets you to stay on the gig or eventually on the major tours, because you were faithful in your role and you didn't get mixed up or try to step ahead. So I think the relationship thing, it comes back to that, right? It comes back to knowing who you are, what you do well, and doing it to the best of your ability, so that guys like you can say, hey, come on a cruise, make a lot of money, and one day you level up and you own your business and you do the same thing that you did because you've lived it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't do a ship, I mean, that's fine, whatever. But the point is, you just have to understand whatever gig you're on, what your role is, and at the end of the day, at the end of all of it, which is, I think, one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned as a performer, I figured out, is none of it's about you anyways. It's all about the audience, because if there's no audience, you're just sitting in your room practicing, yeah. Right? So you understanding what you are bringing to the stage and then sitting in that and doing your absolute best at it. When you project that out, the audience, whether they know exactly what you're doing or not, what's on the chart? Did you make the chart? They don't know any of that, but they do know the way they feel. And if what you put in front of that bandstand and how you rehearse these guys and how you did everything as an MD or how you're playing as a drummer, whatever, if you move the audience, you see someone crying out there, whatever it is, now you're actually doing what you're supposed to do. It's about the audience. It's not about you. And a lot of times we get it flipped as musicians. We think it's about us. It's not. At the end of the day, if there's no audience, you're just a guy sitting. You just may as well be in your mom's basement at home practicing, right? So, really understanding what your role is on stage and then just sitting in that and doing your best at it. I think that's where the money's at.
Yeah, yeah, it's where the money is at. It's where the relationships and the people that actually, like I said, I feel like this is all about not impressing people, but being the kind of person that people can count on, the person of character and a musician of character. I want to,
Impressing. I mean, you'll impress people by just doing
by
what
just
you.
do, being professional. I want to ask you though, because I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, I was just saying, just doing what you said, what you were going to do, which is just integrity. That's all.
Great word, exactly. I wanted to ask though, because we kind of, like you said, we went, from the end to the beginning, and now we're coming back to around the end. So you start the agency, you begin to get these contracts, and all this time, like you said, you guys are pushing hard on this debt. So I kind of want you to give us. You talked about the valley moment of seeing that, $460,000 in debt. Give me a mountaintop moment. I don't know if it's just a get debt to scream or something in between where you started to say, "Oh my gosh, this is happening. We're starting to make it." Like, give me one of those moments where maybe you and Jade, whether it was performing, whether it was a headline, what was a moment that like you kind of hit that little mountaintop and you said, "This is working. We're about to reach our goal." And how does that feel as a musician doing that grind and then seeing that all these things that you're talking about are working in your favor?
It's interesting. You sent me that question, the bottom. What was the bottom? What was the
Mm-hmm.
mountain? Email. And I really was thinking about it. And for me, the mountaintop, I mean, yes, I was ready to jump out of my skin when we paid off that debt and when the agency came to life. But I I've been in so many amazing environments and been in front of audiences, a million of them with standing ovations and blah blah blah. But the mountaintop for me, I was really thinking about it, and it's probably about a year and a half ago. We were in South Florida, and we have two kids, and they're about to be 3 and 5, but at the time they were like 1 and 3. And we had just taken my kid to a Taekwondo class. And then afterwards we took both kids to go get pizza. And I was sitting there with Jade and both kids, and they were eating. And I said to her, I was like, we're really doing this. Like, we're doing this. And for me, that was just all this struggle as a musician, all this grind and climb and building and sacrifice to get out of debt and doing nothing for 7 years except paying off this debt and working and working and working. And I looked up and it was like, we have this beautiful house. We don't owe anybody anything. We do whatever we want. We're free people. Our kids don't know any of the crap we've been through to get here. This is all right. We're really doing this. That to me, it was a small moment, but that to me was better than any being in front of any audience, because performing is a vapor. Have you ever been in a room of 5,000 people and it's, oh yeah, amazing team, the band crushing, whatever. And then it's done. And then you're in your hotel room or you're at home and you're eating a sandwich. It's like, what just happened?
Absolutely.
Oh, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and go to the gym. You know what I mean? It's just it evaporates. It's a weird thing. It's easy to get caught up in and chase it over and over and over. I get that. But yeah, when I really thought about it, I thought, man, when I could look at my life and know I never worked a job, because
Yeah.
I am free. and and
Sorry, I gotta stop you just a second,
I
man.
choose to do what I want to do.
Can you? Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's breaking up on my side. Sam, so sorry. I lost like half a sentence. I don't know if you can. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it just slowed down. Let me make sure I got nothing else open here. Let me close a couple more things and make sure, and
Oh,
then
let
we'll
me
go back.
bring this stuff to it.
Make sure it wasn't me. Since I was the
Hold on.
internet, you know how that is. But yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure you got that point because I was going to try to salvage it, but it got a little too garbled.
I can I can I can say it again if you want.
Yeah, no, dude, thank God we got 99% of that. Okay, so yeah, you were just about to finish about saying,
I was just saying that, as a musician, I think one of the most important things that you can have is a why you're doing this. It's not an easy life. Um, and for me and Jade, part of that why was freedom. Freedom to be able to do what we wanted to do. Freedom to perform if we want, or if we don't want. And in that moment at that pizza restaurant, I just looked up and I realized, wow, we have finally, we're free. We have no debt. We don't owe anyone anything. I don't work for anybody. I do what I want when I want. And that to me is the mountaintop, not the performance. The performance is amazing, but if you've performed, it's not just get up there and do a song. There's all this other crap that goes along with it,
in the background. Hmm.
and rehearsal and yada yada and travel and all that. And it's great, but it is a vapor, and so yeah.
I absolutely love this. Is one of the best answers I've ever heard, Sam, because here's one of the things that it sounds like I try to put myself in these things when it's all about really what you just shared, but I got to share this as musician to musician. Um, what I realized over and over again as my kids are on the other side. How old are your kids, by the way?
About to be 3 and 5.
Oh, beautiful. See, you're at the beginning. So I started early and I'm finishing early. So I just had one get married
Oh
in
wow.
in November. And let me tell you, brother, you get ready because you think those last few years just went by fast. And me being able to record the bridal march for my daughter-in-law
Mhm.
and watching her walk up the aisle and hearing my little roads playing best part as they walked up. It's the same thing. It's like I would trade this for
Sure.
a million gigs for you. I don't, you name the artist. I don't care. Beethoven, Bach, whatever. I don't care
Yeah.
who it is. I would rather have this moment. And I think so many creatives musicians need to hear this, that's the goal. The goal is not to chase the tours. The goal is, like you said, you know, those moments are gone. And by the way, let's talk about the financial part real quick. Those gigs, those big gigs. I've had so many interviews, brother, with people who play those big gigs and then they're not fiscally responsible. Not only is it a vapor with the fame and the popularity, but the money and the prestige they think they're going to get is a vapor as well. So if they don't really see what's really important, all of that stuff just disappears and they end up with nothing at the end.
Well, the money side, that's a whole nother topic. Musicians are notoriously bad for handling money, whether they made
Yeah.
$100,000 or
I
$10,000.
just use it as an example as something again that where people think that this equals success.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
um, but then like you said, you go home with nothing. I mean, once I turned into an adult, and I was really in this music world, I realized, man, a lot of these people I look up to, they they blew it. Like, you just went on tour with who, for 4 months, and you just made 100 grand. You have nothing. Like, where'd it go? And that's a whole nother topic, which is a
Absolutely.
passion of mine. Obviously, my wife Jade now is, you know, one of the faces for America of money, and it's because it was such a burden that we carried, the debt and the journey to get out of that. It changed us, the way we make money, the way we handle money, the way we view money, um, the way we give it. All that came out of being in that hole of debt and getting on, Dave Ramsey's plan and working it as hard as you can work it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And again, that's why I see this as full circle, coming right back now, like you said, moving, coming up there where you still have the agency, where you're still doing your thing as a musician. You've never, help me if I say this wrong. You've never lost the pure joy of creating music. That's never been something, whether it's been business or agency, you still enjoy the fact of calling yourself a musician. Does that be correct? So
That would be
that's why I like singing the full gamut. And everything you've shared, nothing has ever said, "Oh, and give up your dream of being a musician." You've actually done it by holding on to your dream of being a musician.
not to, I don't say this to pat myself on the back at all.
No,
It's just
please.
a compliment, So I was talking to Rhonda Smith when I moved up here. We were on the phone. If you don't know who she is, she was Prince's bass player for 10 years, and we've become good friends. And she said to me, she was like, "What are you doing? You're in Nashville. Oh, all this music opportunity, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, I said, I've performed at least 2 days a week. Like at the very least, I was at Church by the Glades 2 days, of the week, Saturday and Sunday, just going hard every weekend. And then before that, on the road for 10, 12 years. And I said to her, I was like, I don't know what I want to do playing wise right now. I am a musician, but I'm choosing right now to not really. I've had 2 tour offers since I've been here, and I've turned them both down. I'm just choosing to do what I like, even on the playing side. I don't want to do that right now. My wife is in a new role, and she's gone during the day, so I take care of our kids. I'm just choosing to do that. And she said to me, she was like, "Man, do you know how many musicians can say that? Like none." She's like, "You really have to have your crap together to be able to make that choice." And that is what for me and Jade, almost everything we've done is boiled down to, again, is that why are you doing this? For me, it's freedom, it's choices, to live the life that you want to live. And as a musician, I think, and I realized this early, I think that is absolutely crucial to your success. You have to set yourself up so that you're free. And part of that freedom is being financially responsible, getting on a plan, and excuse me, and owning that area of your life. Because guess what? I see this all the freaking time when I hire people, okay? Or when I've been on other gigs. Here's what happens. I mean, it could be anything. I'll make up a scenario that could be likely. You're a bass player. You get a call from your boy. He knows Beyonce's manager, all right? Beyonce's manager is looking for a keys player. You send him a video. You get the gig. But let's just say you have to buy your own flight to LA to get to rehearsals. And let's say ticket prices are high right now. It's $700 to get to LA. And you have $150 because you've been really bad with your money. And what's going to happen? Like, you have not set yourself up to win because you've not taken responsibility for that part of your life, which is important. And if you want to be free, if you want to do the things you want to do, there's certain areas of your life you really got to dial in. And I'm just a big believer that personal finance is one of those. Because I see it all the time. I will hire a guy to work on a ship, and you have to do a medical. You have to pass a medical exam to work on a ship. Medical exam's $500. And you have the job. You got the job, but you don't have $500. And so sometimes people got to forfeit their opportunity because of that.
Wow.
And so, when, again, back to having that debt, we were like, if we want to have the life we want to have, we got to get out of this by any means necessary. And, that's what we did.
Man, so much of this goes right back to the character and the discipline that, again, if you want to be a musician, you have to have discipline to learn your instrument. You want to be skilled, all that stuff. But the same is with life skills. And I just think about that simple Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, right? Trust in the Lord with all thy heart, all the ways and not, and he shall direct your paths. These paths are not easy paths. They're paths that are simple things and simple choices that can have amazingly positive or negative consequences based on what, like you just said. And we got to look ahead and see that that's what it takes. It takes being a person of, again, you said the word earlier, integrity in your finances, in your business, in your character, and in the way you treat the musicians and the people in your world, so that you can keep those opportunities.
Yeah, and the thing, it's such a bummer to me is that in music, you ask any big time musician you look up to, hey, what are you looking for in a person, that you would hire? And the answer is the same, and the bar is so low, and it makes me so mad.
I agree with this.
They would just show up prepared and showed up on time, and they were ready to go and they had a good attitude. I'm like, that's it.
Why is it's common sense? Why is that?
Because musicians, man, it's like, I don't know. There's like that old bad joke, like, how do you make a musician complain? Give him a job, like give him a gig. It's like, dude, come on, man. You've been working so hard for this, you finally get it, and you screw it up for stupid reasons. Like, I just think as a whole, as a community, as a profession, like, just need to be better, about that stuff. Like, learn your scales all you want, but if you can't show up on time, what good is it?
Exactly, exactly. I call it the three P's of professionalism. It's being prepared. Preparation is practice. Obviously, it's professionalism in terms of showing up on time and everything, and it's also your appearance. It's how you show up. Like some people, like you said, don't even show up, and like you said, if you don't have the money to buy the suit, and you show up in a little T-shirt with a tux on it, which I've heard has happened, by the way.
Sure.
Yes, I heard this story the other day on the gigs. I'm like, no, he did not. It's like, yes, he showed up in a tux T-shirt to try to fake the fact that he didn't have a tux. So yeah, man, I think we're preaching to the choir though, because if they're listening to this podcast and watching this, most likely they're the kind of musician that wants to grow. They're the artist that wants to grow. They're not the kind of person that's sitting back. If they're actually open to this information and learning from someone like you who's done it, then I guarantee you they're not going to be one of those people that's going to be the unprofessional person. They're going to come up or at least push themselves now that they've heard you share this. So tell me, please, we could talk about this all day as we were talking about, like there's a million different topics we could talk about, but I want to make sure I ask you this question because I love to finish these interviews with this, and it really just shares what your heart is. If you could talk to the Sam that was there with your wife at 23 years old, staring at that debt, saying, I want to be a musician, but we got almost $500,000 in debt. What would you say to that Sam right now, knowing what he felt and that someone else might be in the same position?
Man, that's a good question. What would I say to my younger self? Oh man. Wait, ask me the question one more time.
Yeah. If you could talk to that you, like you said, your younger self at that moment, knowing where you are now, what would you say to him to encourage him and your wife? If you could travel back in time and just say, do like the Marty McFly thing and just,
I would say you got to walk the path. You got to walk. You got to start walking, and it'll happen. But you got to keep walking. You got to keep I remember Jade said this on the last podcast with you, but I pray for favor every day. Like I'm sure God's tired of me saying it, but
thank God he isn't.
I think that's the most valuable thing you can pray for, because it's not to me, that's not, oh, he's going to give you $1 million. It's, hey, this door could open, or, hey, you're not going to be sick this day, or, hey, you get pulled over and this doesn't happen, or whatever it is. When you have favor, man, I mean, what's possible is endless in my mind. And so I would just tell my younger self, you got to start walking this path. It's going to be hard. It's going to be worth it. You won't want to change anything. Keep praying for favor, and put in the sweat. It's going to be hard. But when you look up, your mind will be blown. And our pastor at CBG says this all the time, and it's kind of just been a theme for us. Jade's been saying it on the Ramsey Show, but your bad break will become your big break. Your mess can become your message, and that's what's happened. So
yeah, beautiful, Sam. I'm telling you, I have been challenged and I have been encouraged by this talk. I am very selfish at these things. These are basically my calls that I share with everybody else. And I'm telling you, I know there's a bunch of musicians and artists and creatives who now have a greater sense of what's possible, that they're, like you said, their bad break or their moment right now where they're looking at what seems impossible, and they're looking at you and say, with God's favor and with determination, that they can do it. So tell them, please, especially if they're a musician that might be even interested in entering this path with you, with someone like you, who can kind of, obviously show them the ropes and give them possibly the opportunity they're looking for. Let them know how they can stay in touch with you.
So if you're a musician looking for work, and you're interested in the cruise industry, it's a full-time gig. You can go to our website, warshawentertainment.com. There's an application there. You can fill it out. You choose the position. We cast for all kinds of positions. We're casting all the time. A word to the wise, if you're going to apply, you got to do your best. Like, the interview begins the second you start typing. Okay. Just a heads up. So if you don't capitalize your name, I'm already throwing your application away. All right. It's like that serious for me. It tells me a lot about who you are, the way you present yourself, like we just talked about. So yeah, go to the website. And if that's something you're interested in, we review every application we get. I respond to every single one. Sometimes it takes me a little while, but I don't like when you submit something and you never hear back. I feel like if you took the time, I'm going to take the time to give you the respect to respond to you. So that's one side. And then the other side that I'm super passionate about, and and a huge part of our life and what my wife does now is, if you are a musician and you're struggling with finances, I cannot encourage you enough to go take, there's a million resources, but I would say go take Financial Peace University. That's a course created by Dave Ramsey. You can go to ramseysolutions.com to take that course, or you can just start, you start listening to the podcast, The Ramsey Show, and you will start to understand what you're supposed to do. It's a proven plan. 10 million people have gone through the class. Dave has made more millionaires out of people than anyone in history. It is not a get rich quick thing at all. It's hard. Okay? It's biblical money principles. And if you live those principles out, you will see the results of it. And I can say that with 100%, like, I'm living proof of it. Like, I'm free and I don't owe nobody nothing, and we're living our best life. And so, whether you are just starting out, whether you've got debt, whether you don't have debt, whether you are doing really well and you want to know how to manage it very well so that it's not a vapor, man, go check out The Ramsey Show, go to ramseysolutions.com, check out what they got going on. Man, I mean, if you let it, it can change your life for real.
Man, again, brother, I could not tell you how happy and honored. And I know the favor that you're walking in is just going to continue because you're still giving out of your heart generously of what you have to share in your music and your passion. And then what you and your wife are doing is just the half has not been told. So thank you so much, Sam, for being a part of the God and Gig Show. Hope we're going to do it again sometime soon.
Got it. Thanks, man.
My friend, thank you for watching this episode. If that blessed you, you got to make sure that you stay connected with this community and this channel so that you can get more where that came from. We're sharing great interviews, tactics, strategies, mindsets, lifestyle choices, everything that's going to help you become a totally confident creative. And don't miss an episode of the God and Gig Show. If you are staying connected to our channel, you'll be able to find us anytime we release new episodes. And you can check out some of our archives of almost 200 episodes now that we've shared over the last few years. Make sure you check out one of the suggestions right now because it's probably perfect for you to continue to develop as a creative. And continue to stay connected with us because we're here to help you become the creative that God created you to be. We'll see you in the next episode.